It's okay? Okay, so I guess I'll get started. My talk is entitled Fake It Until You Make It, using the console to speed up your development. First of all, you'll notice that throughout my presentation I enlisted the help of my 2 kids to do slides up for me and stuff. So I'll do the obligatory little bit about me. I've been a PHP programmer since back in the PHP 3 days, so 1997, which is quite a long time. I've been very lucky that every professional programming job I've ever had has been PHP, so I've never had to learn anything else. So in a way, it's a good thing, because for a lazy guy like me, it means I don't have to learn anything new. But I've learned to pick up things as I go along. I discovered Cake maybe about 2 years ago for a project at the company where I was working. I created a stats reporting tool, and I decided I wanted to build with a framework, and I wasn't entirely happy with Zen framework at the time, and so I decided I was going to take a look at Cake. So my talk is also about me to a certain extent. Now, I've been called grumpy by lots of people. My nickname's Grumpy Canuck. I've probably started more flame wars on the mailing list than a lot of people. And so, but it all goes back to basically what I want. What I want when I'm looking for tools to help me with my development is I want tools that are going to make my life easy. I want tools that are going to generate code for me. I want tools that are going to build things for me that then I can then in turn build on the application. So how does the console make me less grumpy? Well, using the console means that I'm very comfortable with command line. How many people here are comfortable using the command line? Most of the Mac heads, right? And people with Linux or Unix backgrounds, right? So for a guy like me, I was a Linux user for a long time before I decided to take the plunge and take some of the profit from when my wife and I sold our house to buy a laptop, and so I've been using Macs ever since. And so it was natural to me to use the command line, to use the shell. So when I found a tool that could help me, quickly build things out, so that I could try to get more work done in a shorter period of time, it seemed to me that the console is a natural thing for it. So the first thing about the console is don't fear the command line. Now, I know we're probably an atypical crowd here in that a lot of us have experience with the command line, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of the silent majority of CakePHP users don't use the command line and are afraid to use it. And really, it's given that there's screencasts available that Garrett did on how to actually configure the console to work, whether it's in Windows or any of the other Unix-based ones. There's no reason not to try to take the time to set up just so you can experiment with it. And I think that really that the command line-based tools for Cake are really something that a lot of people aren't aware of, and a lot of people should really try to integrate their use into their regular development. So when you use Bake, it starts with the data source. So throughout the presentation, I'm going to be dropping out of the slides to show some stuff. So what I have here is that we're going to go along as I work here, and I'm going to show you how to use Cake to quickly build out, oddly enough, a conference tracking piece of software. So I've set up a few tables here. I have a guest table. Can everybody see this? The case size at the back? Okay. So I've set up a guest table, a talks table, speakers list, and also a guest talks, because I figured I want to show off some has and belongs to many stuff. So we start with that we need for Bake to work. You have to have a data source. There's no way around it. So once we have the data source, then we can start using it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is baking models. What can you do with the console if you want to bake a model? What you can do is that it lets you generate the outline of code that you can use to interact your model. You can do your associations, and you can also do validations if you want to as well. So we're just going to drop here. Nice and big? Okay. So I'm going to go into my little app, and we're just going to do Cake Bake. And so I'm going to say, okay, I want to bake a model. So now, because I have the data source, Bake is smart enough to look at them and say, which config do I want to use? So I'm going to use the default one. And then it says, okay, which possible model, which model do I want to use? So I'm just going to use guest. And of course, it asks me, do I want to supply a validation criteria? Well, we can in this case, and I can say that, okay, I want to have, we kind of scrolled here. So I want to do I know I know the ID. We can just sort of ignore it because we don't need it. Okay, for name, I want to make sure that it's alphanumeric. God, I should maybe make this smaller. That's a little bit better. And for email, I'll oddly enough use the email validation. And do I want to define some associations? Yeah, and Bake's smart enough that it'll actually look at your tables and say, hey, if you've set up your primary keys, you use the conventions, you can have something, right? So it says here, does guest has and belongs to many talks? If you remember, if we go back here, you can see that I already previously defined the table here for guests and talks. So it knows that I've done that, so we'll say, yeah, I'd like that. And would I like to add some additional associations? No, that's it for now. And so does it look okay? Yep, okay, so now what I have here is now I instantly have some code that's already been generated for me. Where is it here? Models. Is that okay? Can people see that? So you can see that by using the console, it's generated all stuff. It's given me a proper name. It's created the array with validations in it, and it's created the associations for me. And this is good for me because, like I said, I'm lazy and I forget things, and so I don't like to have to be constantly referring to other things to figure out what the proper syntax is, what all the parameter names are. So by doing this, I can simply say Cake, give me the shell to do this. Okay. So what I'm going to quickly do, I'm going to go and quickly bake all the other. Go and bake all the other ones. So bear with me here. Won't bother. I think I have to do talk. Okay. So as you can see now, if I go back to my editor, you can see now I have all these model files all done for me. I didn't have to create them. I didn't have to, do a touch to just make a blank copy of the file and go and edit it. So I know that there is an automated. There's a method you can do bake all that'll go through and just with a bunch of defaults get all these things for you. I don't tend to use the bake all because I like to do each individual model. But again, it's something that saves time. I'm a big believer in code generation, so it helps me save time. Okay. So now that we've done the models, so the next thing we can bake now that we have our models and set is that we can bake controllers. So when you bake a controller, what can you bake? You can get it to bake all your the standard sort of CRUD set of methods of actions. So you can have your insert, edit, delete, and then the index. And also you can do, one thing I like to always use is the admin routing. So when I have an application, I want to build the admin panel, because anytime you build an application for somebody other than yourself, chances are they're going to want some sort of admin capabilities. So again, I can leverage that and say, I want you to create all those controllers for me. So again, we'll do the same thing here. Okay, so I want to do the guest controller. And I say no to interactive. I say yes to the basic methods. And we'll do the admin ones too. Okay, so then again, you can just repeat this as well. So again, just this is generally how I work when I'm creating something from scratch, because I like to have a little bit of control. Oh, scheiße. All right, we'll just do. No. Okay. Okay, did I do them all? Let's see. Yep, okay, so now I have all my controllers. So the next step after I do the controllers is now I also want to quickly bake the views that go along with those methods. So again, we can just drop out and do the same thing again. So we'll do the guest views, and I'll say, nope. Yep, and that's it. And then talks. Yeah, I can try those. Ugh. Okay, so now we've done that, if I reload my little empty app here, and I can just go to, hopefully this works. Aha, see? Empty property. What did I do? Larry, what happened? Empty property. I must have an error in there somewhere. One sec. Something is accessing something that I don't want. I have a helper in there that I don't want to use. Oh, that's why it's there. Okay, see? That should fix it. So, with literally about 5 minutes worth of work, I now have the complete shell of an app that I can start fooling around with. So you can see that if I want to enter a new talk, I can just go blah, blah, and I'm going to say that my daughter and the fictional Joe Slobodnik are going to attend, submit, and bingo. And same thing, now I have this, I can list speakers, I can list talks, and so I find that using the console is a very impressive way to demonstrate to people just how much you can get done in a very short period of time. Because if you're trying to sell CakePHP as being rapid, you have to be able to, oh, that's going to fall. You have to be able to back that up. Okay, so if we continue on, so that's, so Bake is the big one that I use to basically build out an application very quickly. So before I continue, any questions? Yep.
Let's say that you bake a model and you add custom functions to the model, and then you go to phase 2 of the project and you add a ton of more tables that are related to that model's table. Can you run Bake again to update that model without wiping it out? Basically, you don't lose anything custom you put into it on your own.
I've never done that, but I don't know the answer. My guess is that Bake will probably just overwrite what you have in there already. So if you're going to do something like that, you're probably best to take the nice strategy of backing up what you've got there, bake the new model with the changes, and then just paste your old function. Bake's probably at this point not smart enough to do that. It'd be interesting to do, but then you have a lot of introspection and a lot of fiddly work to try to figure out what was there before. Any other questions about Bake? How many people actually use Bake? Wow, I'm impressed. I thought it was among the minority. Okay, so sure.
What's admin routing?
Okay, what you can do here is okay, I'll show. You can get things set up by going into your config file, and I believe it's in the config, and you go into core.php, and there's a section in here for admin routing. And basically what it lets you do is, where is it? Here we are. Okay, so yeah, see, so we have it. So admin routing is turned on. What it lets you do is it lets you sort of create like an admin area for your application, and then you can create a series of. I can go to admin/talks, and it's already baked basically the same thing. But what it lets you do is that if you wanted to create a separate administrative interface for your application, you can get it. You can set up routing so that you just simply do /admin and then the name of the controller and the name of the action, and then in the actual controller itself, there's a convention for the name of the. If you give them a function name, a method name of admin _ something. So in this case, can you guys see that highlighted? Okay. You can do, if you did /admin/talks/index, you would be accessing the admin_index action in your controller. So it's a handy thing if you want. I use it in combination with the auth component, which I've fooled around with quite a bit. That I set up my auth component and I say any of the actions that aren't admin related, we won't require authentication. But if you want to use anything with admin, then we use the auth component to handle that. So it's sort of like a way, if you know ahead of time that you're going to need to build an admin interface for the customer or the client or whoever's going to use this application on a regular basis, you can start off with with views and actions to go along with it. You can then continue to build on. I find it a very handy thing because most of the time when I've built something, I always end up having to build an admin interface for it as well. Okay. So Joel sort of stole my thunder by getting to talk about the database stuff first. Now, there is the cake schema method, shell, and I'm going to show you very quickly how I use it. I find it to be very helpful when I want to go and basically to do deployment. One of the things, my usual development process, that I will do my work locally on my laptop, and then I usually use a deployment tool called Capistrano. Who here's heard of Capistrano? Okay, so for those who don't know, it's like a Ruby-based deployment system. Originally, it was Rails specific, but they've made enough changes to it now that you can use it to deploy anything. So I tend to use Capistrano to deploy my application from my laptop to the staging server where my code is living. But then there's always database changes to worry about. And while Joel's migration system is very, very close to what Ruby on Rails uses, the schema way the schema shell is more like a PHP specific version, nothing more. So just to give you an idea of how the shell actually works, if you're going to use that. What you'll find, let me show you in the tree here. When you use it, you'll end up with a directory in your a folder in your config folder called SQL. And so if we look at some of the options that you can do with Cake Schema, because this is a helpful one if you have to do all sorts of little incremental database changes. So you can see that we have a number of options that we can use with Cake Schema. So basically it's Cake Schema command, and then you can pass a bunch of arguments depending on what you need. So the most common ones are the ones here. You can view the actual schema. You can generate the schema, so that generates a PHP file that ends up in your config. You can do database dumps, which is very helpful if you want to copy an entire database over from your development to staging to get the exact things. You can do another handy one, which I really like, is the run create. So if you're trying to do a deployment from scratch, if you're setting up, say, a new staging server and you want to get the exact same configuration as what you have now, you can do a schema run. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to generate the schema. So it's cake schema, if I can spell it right. Schema. And since this is the first, and since I want to create a brand new one, you can use this -f switch which tells it to force it to create one. Okay. So very quickly, it just rips through and says, okay, I've generated the schema. So now I know that Joel showed you guys very briefly what the schema looks like. Okay. So as you can see, in this case, we have our before and after methods, and then this just shows all the table definitions, right? So now, say I didn't want to actually have to open up the file to take a look at the schema. I can go cake schema view, and I'll pipe it through more to slow it down so we don't scroll too much off. So you can see here that if I wanted to look at the file just to confirm what's in it, again, it just dumps it out to the command line for me. I sometimes like to use this. I sometimes also use it I do a cake schema, and I pipe it through grep. So if I'm trying to find if I added a particular field name to a particular model, I can check to see if it's in there already. Okay. And then if you look again at the cake schema help, you can also see that we can do we can do a schema dump. So this is the same thing. It dumps the SQL needed if you wanted to say create it on another server. So cake schema dump. And if you don't specify a file name, it'll just use the default, right? So again, you can see that it's spit out the SQL needed to generate this if I wanted to port this to another, if I wanted to put this on another server. So same thing, right? These are, in my experience with doing development, typically I would use database dumps and put those into version control as a way to try to simulate doing a kind of migration thing, so that every time I do a change, create the raw SQL, and then pretty much everyone here I'm sure knows how to load one of these things in. Okay, so so let's take a look again at another schema option. You can see schema run create. I like to use this sometimes if I've been messing around with the database and I've messed up a table, or I've added a column and I decide afterwards that I don't want it. So I can just do a schema run create. Now you can see I'll have data in here already in my SQL. Okay. So after I run it, what I'll be left with is my just the outline of the table and nothing more. Oops. Yeah, it would help if I put cake in front. So I want to drop the tables, yes. I want to create the tables. And if we go back here and I refresh, you should see that, yep, tables are empty, okay? Now, the one feature in the schema that I haven't really played with much is the schema run update. But I think, basically, as I understand it, and others can tell me if I'm incorrect, they usually do, is that if I were to make a change to the well, we can try it right now, right? So I can just say, okay, say to the guest table, I want to add a column where I want to know the sign-up date or the registration date, right? Larry, is it date time if you're using the schema for a date? Date time. Date time. See, you can see I'm a lazy typer, right? How slow I go. Okay. So I've decided, okay, to the guest table, I want to add this registration date. So if this works, if I've done proper there, I should be able to just go cake schema run update. And see, it can tell, it's gone back and it's looked and it said, oh, okay, so you want to alter the table and add this new registration date. So I'm like, yep, let's go ahead and add that in. And if I go back and refresh, look at the guest table, I should have, hey, there it is, registration date. Excellent. Okay, so any questions about cake schema? Yes?
The drop or the dump, is that dump SQL specific to the database type?
I believe it is. I've only really fooled around with it with MySQL, but yes, Larry, you're waving your hand. Yes? Pardon me?
What was the question?
No, the question was, when you do the schema dump, is it database specific, or is it just like database driver specific, like if you have...
Database driver specific.
Yep, okay.
Once you dump it, you can import it into any database and it's going to work.
Okay. Any other questions about schema? No? Okay. So you can use it to manage databases. Now, a more recent addition is something that I originally hacked together about a year and a bit ago initially. I haven't really touched it much since, and then Nate added some support for doing routes. But you can use, there's a part in the console called console, which is probably a poor naming choice on my part, should probably be renamed something else, where you can test models and routes. Now, to just give you an idea here, I'll go into here and I have to I'll add in a guest record here. to something really quick. We'll just give it an ID number. Okay, so what you can do is that you can do Cake console. And, that's not what I want. Okay, so if you do a help, it tells you what options are available if you use the console. So what you can do is that right now you can do the following. You can do some model testing, and you can confirm your routes. Now, I'm going to focus on the modeling because I haven't really used the routes one too much, but basically it's the same sort of principle. So basically what I did is I created a task, and in that task I sort of created a mini DSL where I just said I limit people to a certain number of activities I can do. But the good thing that you can do with this is that you can pretty much use any of the methods that are available to a model to test things. So, for example, by just using the model name without a leading $sign and then the method. So, for example, if you look back here, I added in a record to the guest table. So I can go guest, find all, and then it'll display a nicely formatted data set. Now, I was asked during lunch, under what circumstances would you want to use this? How is this different from, say, doing a unit test? I look at this as being that it gives you a chance to experiment, to try to determine if you're using the right parameters when you're trying to use a model. Now, if I wanted to say, I know I only have one record here, but it should work. If I find, if I want to find where, give me all the records give me all the guests where name is test, right? And bingo. So anything that you can do with a model in your code, you should be able pretty much to do in the console as well. So if we do the help again, another way that I find this helpful as well, and this example is a little bit too basic to cover it, but you can also dynamically bind associations. So if you wanted to test, if you created your tables and you haven't defined the associations in your model yet, and you want to be sure that the association that you want is going to work correctly, you can just simply, you can see the example here where you can do model A binds to associate, to model B. Or you can do the same thing. You can dynamically unbind one, because I know we talk about. I've noticed there's been a few more messages on the mailing list lately where people are talking about how they're running into memory errors, where PHP is running out of memory because perhaps they have a setup where they have a lot of models and there's a lot of associations. So there may come a time when you want to try to unbind some of these things on the fly to see if you get better performance. And this could also be a way to test that. Okay, now another thing here, if you can just see the example really quickly, is that to test the routing lets you test URLs against your app's root configuration. And the idea is that if you do a route, you can say you want to be able to test what controller and action pair you're going to get. So, for example, let's say I want to make sure that if I go to CakeFest/admin/ guest index, it'll tell me that it says here, here's the actual route information, what I get back. So you can see that it goes. You have an admin is turned on, so and it says it says that you're supposed to be getting. Oh, is that right? Named array. I'll have to confirm with Nate if that's what the proper output's supposed to be. But the idea behind this is that you want to be able, if you're trying to do complicated routing because you maybe have some legacy URLs for your old application, and you want to set up the route in the configuration file, and then you want to be able to test to make sure that when you put your old URL in, that you're going to get the results that you want. The main thing that I like to do with the console is that it's the idea that you can test things quickly without. I mean, most developers, their traditional way of debugging is save, reload the browser, save, refresh the browser. Yep.
A relative path.
Was it a relative path? Okay. Yeah.
relative to the base of your application.
Oh, okay, so there we go. So like that then?
Yeah.
All right, see? And there you go, see, now that's better. That makes much more sense. So you can see in this case, to get back to when you're asking about how the admin routing works, now you can see if you pass the admin, if you pass a URL in with the admin, you can see that we're the proper controller, what to action, whether admin is true, and because you can also set other routing, there's like a super prefix for it as well, but you can see that slowly this testing console can get built out to allow people to get away from the repetitive save, refresh the browser, save, refresh the browser. Instead, do everything, test all these things in the console before you have to commit to doing any code. So any questions about the model and route testing tasks? No? Wow. Okay. So I hope I haven't bored you guys to death with the talk. I know this talk is a little bit short. There's a lot of stuff in the console. But the big thing is I've only shown you the basics of what you can do with the console. If you start, the good thing about the console is that it has a lot of help features built in it. So if you do, for almost every option, if you do a help, it's pretty much going to tell you what you can do, and should usually provide you with an example of how to do it. And so I've really made an effort to incorporate using the console into my CakePHP development. I've even found that it's been a very useful tool to use when I have an existing app already and I want to expand things, that I can just drop into the console, bake a new model, bake a new controller, bake the associated views, and then start fooling around with the stuff to make sure that things are looking the way that I want. So if you want to ever talk to me some more, if you want to flame me over things I say on the CakePHP mailing list, there's my email, and that little tiny thing at the bottom there, that's the address for my blog. So any other questions about Bake and using the console in general? There's also some other features that I can go into. Mariano asked me about this at lunch. There's an API shell. Okay, so if you've ever wanted to know for a particular item, you can see here, we can take a look at behaviors, cache, controllers, we can look for specific things. So if I want to do, for example, I'll use the auth component. So I could do Cake API component auth. And then, because this is better to me than going on to api.cakephp.org and searching through that, I can drill down to find what I want. So I can see with the auth component, here's all the methods that are available to me. So I can say, okay, I can't remember what some of these parameters mean for example, for is authorized, right? So I can do this, and we get the actual whole doc block, right? So you can see. It shows you, here it is, auth component. It shows you attempts to introspect the correct values for object properties. It shows you in this case, some of the code where it's actually being used, so you can have a look. Some more explanations, and then again, it's like having the ability to have the API sitting locally. If you happen to do some work where you don't have access to the web, it happens from time to time, and you need to look at the API, you can just look it up in the shell. Okay, and it even shows you what parameters you have to pass in and other stuff like that. So, all right. So, any other questions about using the console, suggestions, features that people would like to see that aren't already in the console from those who use it? Yeah, at the back there?
Yeah, have there been any extensions to Bake in order to have it generate things for like client-side app, like Flex or something rich like that, for to have like value objects and things of that nature be generated?
I haven't seen any. I don't know if anybody's working on those. I mean, it's it's kind of, a lot of these things are kind of like project specific, so I guess if someone who uses the console and has a need for it, I'm sure that people have come up with other things.
You can actually do custom bake templates for pretty much anything.
Oh, that's right. That's the thing I totally forgot. The console is all templates, so what you saw me using was all the default ones, but you can actually go, and if you want to set up project-specific templates, like if there's always a set of components you always want to use, and you get tired of Bake asking you if you need to use them, then you can just go in and hack the templates. Let me see if I can show you what one of the templates looks like. Okay, project. Let's close these all off. No, where am I? Oh, where am I here? Nope. Okay. Okay, so for example, if I go into Cake, I mean, it doesn't exist. Let's see if we can, we're going to fix that. Not save. Okay. Yeah, so see there's this templates folder, so we can just crack one of these open, and I can say we want to do a But anyway, one of the things, yes, you definitely can do is that there are, that's a page one, but there are templates. So if you really want to get into using Bake and customizing, have your own templates. So you have the layout that you want, that you have the default methods that you want as well. It's all totally customizable. Other questions? Yep.
Do you bake auth and ACL into grab a baker or grab separate from them?
I tend to. I don't think there's anything for auth. I tend to do the auth stuff by hand. I guess when you set it up, if you wanted to, you could tell that when you're initially baking the controller, that you want to use auth, but you'd have to go in afterwards and add your before filter method in and tell it all the various auth options that you want. Any other questions? Okay, suggestions, features that you'd like to see. From a testing, for those who like to do testing, for a testing shell. I know that, where's Travis? There he is. Travis was telling me about how he had whipped together something that you could run all the tests, the unit tests, via the console. That's definitely something that I think would be helpful to provide an alternative for people who don't want to load the tests in the browser. Also, definitely make it easy for those who like to practice continuous integration. Who's familiar with the concept of continuous integration? Okay, well, for those who don't know, the idea is that you have a server sitting somewhere, and every time you make a change to your code that you commit into your source code repository, you have a deployment script set up so that it will check out a version, the latest version of that code, and run a whole whack of tests on it, which usually consists of, if you're lucky, you're running all your unit tests, and if you've done some more work, you can run some tests that'll fire off things like Selenium and things like that, so you can test your UI. So the ability to run tests from the console could mean you could do something like you could write a shell, and that shell could call call a console test action, and then you can capture the output and have a look to see to make sure that all your tests passed. Any other questions? Yep.
Well, tasks and templates, but what I find is that as you, I quite like to do all of my model baking individually, one at a time, so I can specify like the validation and things like that. But it would be quite nice to be able to then bake all controllers and all views.
I think you can actually. I know that there's a. I don't know if you can. Because I know there's supposed to be a Cake Bake All.
Bake all or something, but doesn't it just?
Cake Bake All does everything.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's a. Yeah, Cake Bake Controller. Okay, let's have a see. Well, maybe there is a switch for baking all your controllers at once. It would be nice. Yeah, I don't see that such. I mean, I'm running. Yeah, this is 0.6311. So I don't know if that I agree. That definitely would be something that would be good, because you do currently have the capability to bake all the models at once. So I think the ability to bake all your views at once would be good too, and to do all the controls. Yep, I definitely do. That would be a good feature to have in there. Any other questions, suggestions, comments? You want me to go away? Yes, no? No? All right, well, thanks very much, guys.